Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Phoenix Trading Strategies, where strategic knowledge and information allows you to trade successfully. Today is June 13th, 2016. It is 9:05 a.m. Eastern Time. For those of you who are here for the first time, welcome. For those of you that are back, welcome back. Before we continue, let us go to the disclaimer. Okay, disclaimer. Future stocks and spot currency trading have large potential rewards, but also large potential risk. You must be aware of the risk and be willing to accept them in order to invest in future stocks and forex markets. Don't trade with money you can't afford to lose. This presentation or website is neither a solicitation nor an offer to buy or sell future stocks or forex. The representations being made at any account will or is likely to achieve profits or losses similar to those discussed on this presentation or website. Past performance indicators or methodology are not necessarily indicative of future results. Being that said and done, let's go to the calendar. Let's see what we have for this morning. Seems like not much. They really do not want to give us hardly any news today. So this will be a straight technical trade practically. I mean, within the next 25 minutes, we'll see CV leading index month on month or the UK. But that's pretty much it. Everything else is later in the evening and not really as impacting as we would expect. We do expect this week on Wednesday the Fed to basically announce whether they're going to change interest rates or not. Everything is very speculative right now. The statement will determine a lot, their economic projections. A lot of people think that they won't. I'm one that believes that I don't think they will right now at this particular moment. But you know, you really never know. Sometimes you just have to go with the flow, see what Miss Yellen decides to do. So let's take a look at the charts and see if we have anything that is playing right now that is of. So right now, we don't have much of a range in the Dow futures. We do have another power dot setting up here. They've established the support level. So at this point, even though they are down for the day and not much from 17,821 to 17,797, it's really nothing. It's 20 points. I'd say that we still have some time to see how it develops. Let's take a look at the S&P, see if that has anything. Oop, same thing. They're holding, and I like this one even better because this one is actually forming. It broke this level. They're coming back to retest. So here, we may have something to look at. I think it's a little premature right now, but only because I would prefer a little bit of more price action. So maybe at this point, what I want to do is I want to take a look at the 60-minute and see if there's anything here that would cause my attention. If I see any power outs, but I don't. So I have to keep looking. It's always good to look at the 1 hour. Whoa, you never know what you're going to see. Let's take, I gotta roll these over. This one too, great. So we'll have to wait on that one. Okay, US CAD. US CAD looks like it's gonna make a move along. That means crude short. And this is on the 1 hour. So if it is the case, that's interesting. Came down, came up. I'm still curious about it, but let's continue. The euro seems to have made the move on the downside right now. We'll see if it holds. At least we have power dots on the 60 minutes, so we know not to trade against it in that direction. That gives us some insight. The Swiss, they've broken through the power dots. They've traded above the trend stop, above the 50 moving average on the 1 hour. So it's going to get interesting. Pound dollar is down for the night. Pound Aussie is down. Pound yen, not much. New Zealand CAD looks like it's going to make a move to the upside based on what the US CAD is doing. So, and we have power dots here on the 60 minute in the US CAD. They just broke through. Let's see, what was the moves? 27.66. Whoa, that's a pretty big move actually. right now. Let's go down to the smaller minutes. I want to see why that occurred right now, because that was a pretty swift move. Okay, this one initiated at 5:10. And right there. We're a little late in this one, but it's still worth looking at. Let's keep going. Euro Aussie. Nothing extravagant about it. Euro Pound. And these are the ones that have actually power dots right now. This one, as you can see, looks like it's about to break through. And actually this one, to me, is a good sell right now, quite honestly. My reasoning behind it, they've already broken through below. Our risk here would be very minimal. Whenever you see them break through power dots the way they've done here, and the angle in which it's been coming in and retesting the trend stop the way it is here, usually you have a movement to the downside. Now let's add the other indicators and the volume, and let's see how far this trade's going to go. This may be one of those trades where we actually see a very good move to the downside. We're already up a few pips. I'd like to say 4 pips. Now remember, the US session has been a little strange. So we may see 10, 15, maybe 20 pip moves, and that's it. So here we're up 5 pips, 4. And let's see what volume divergence began. Actually, this one started to close down. It's almost a candle pattern that we look for, but not quite. Here it was, and this was, of course, earlier today. Why is my time zone off? Hold on. Yeah. See, this is normally the candle pattern that we look for, but we look for it to settle bearish right below. So it still had some bullish volume, but they did settle below the trend dots. And the trade that we were looking for was actually this one. This candle, as you can see, had a negative settlement right after this pattern. So whenever that happens, if you have a pattern with a bullish outcome, sometimes they'll make a move up 10, 15 pips before coming down. This one didn't do that. It actually settled right below where the point of control was here for both, and then it came down. Now, when it broke below the trend stop, it came exactly to the 50 moving averages. This is the 50, this is the 100, and this is the 200, which they're using as a mean. So this is what they call a mean reversion trade. Now, the way we look at moving averages is different than everyone else. So they came down, they did it again here, as you can see, at a lower level. I would have preferred if the body would have closed lower than where this did, but it didn't. But it was still negative, and it never broke the trend stop, thus the move to the downside. Came back, retested, and then came down again. Now, in this move right now that we see, in this one, as you can see, they did not close slightly, closed slightly above with bullish volume. So if we look at the volume on this one, you'll notice that it does have slightly bullish volume, but they did close below the trend dot and below the moving average, plus the angle in which they were coming in to challenge the power dots is very significant. So at this point, this one was bullish, this one was slightly bullish, but you could see this one had a tremendous amount of volume right now and nothing. So now we're at a crossroads, because now we're seeing that this one has to break below these pivots right here. Now, if this doesn't break below these pivots right here, then we don't have a trade going any further. And that means it's time to get out and go look for something else. So this is where sometimes we need to analyze. See, what I don't like about this is that you do have volume divergence here, and then suddenly this one stalled. It looks good, but we need it to break below this level, because only then will we be able to say that price action, in this case, is in the same direction as volume divergence here. If it does not break below this level right here, then at that point, volume divergence in actuality is to the upside. So someone is lying. You know, whenever you see this candle pattern here, draw a line. Number one, draw a line of price action to the downside. And number two, draw a line, go back 2, 3, and if you see that there was volume divergence, then basically draw a line. In this case, volume divergence was here, but it also was here. And it failed. See, this one came down too low. And then this one slightly had a bullish outcome. Very slightly. Not much. And it did close below the trend dots. Then this one came in, boom, negative to the downside. And so now this one is bullish, and it's usually the candle pattern that we look for, but there was no continuation. We would look for this candle to actually hold above and move, or for this one to actually initiate up here, which it did not. And so instead we saw a move to the downside. So now our risk here, based on our entry, is really 5 pips. Nothing more than that. Now usually we would allow this to develop and wait, one candle to see if it makes the move. I'm thinking that if anything, they're probably waiting due to the open of the U.S. indexes. So it'll be interesting in that regard. But at least now we have an idea of what is happening. I don't like the fact that this has bullish volume now, because then it demonstrates this. So at this point, whenever you see something like this, a candle like this that forms, and then you see 2 red candles around it, if there's no continuation, what will happen is that they'll usually come up, and the minute they break above this level, they'll make the move, because it's right there, 79.44. So now at this point, I don't feel too comfortable with this trade based on how it's trading. And again, my risk is 4 pips, 5 pips. I'm not willing to risk more than that. But now I would usually prefer a movement from here to the downside, period. And I would prefer if they close here, but they're not. So being that said and done, that means that this candle from this point could go up. I'm down 2 pips, which is nothing. 3 pips, no, 2 pips. And at this point, is it? No, I got in at 40, so it's 42. Wow, that's a pretty expensive pip that they're paying out on. So at this point, this candle has to define the trade. If it does not define the trade to the downside, and we don't see it trade below 79.36, which is really what we need to see, then there is no more trade. And then we're just basically spinning our wheels. And so you have to give it a certain amount of time to develop. If it doesn't develop, then take what's on the table and go look for something else. Bottom line is that there's always another trade. At least you weren't wrong in the direction originally. The only thing that you were wrong in was that it didn't develop right away. And that sometimes happens. So at this point, this candle has 1 more minute left, and I really need to see some movement here, because I'm expecting a specific outcome based on this trade. Now, this next candle, as soon as this one closes, will determine if it opens to the downside, then I'll stay. If not, I'll get out and I'll go look for something else, because there's no reason for me to stay and continue to take risk when at this moment there's quite a bit of volatility in the market, and liquidity and momentum should be driving this. Plus we have power dots. So the power dots here pretty much announce volume, momentum, and liquidity buildup. Well, we need to see that play out. Let's see. We have a pivot, so that's good, but this has to initiate to the downside. It's starting with negative volume, but let's see how it plays. Because if it doesn't play to the downside, like I said, sometimes it's better just to step out. Now, this one did settle with bullish volume, which is a no-no. You know, whenever you have the points of control at the bottom and the close of the body at the top, in this case, it didn't close too far from the candle, from the point of control, but it did close below the trend dot, which is a good thing. But now we need to see this one initiate to the downside. If we don't see this trade initiate to the downside, then we have to go. So now at this point, the assumption as volume divergence is to the downside because it has been coming down, and you can see how the dashes in the volume have been decreasing. We do have price action to the downside. We do see that the trend stop has flatlined. We do see that the trend dots have slowly been coming down, and the candles have been using them as resistance levels to continue the trade to the downside. But this is where, as they say, everything hits the wall. Well, either the road hits it here, we initiate a new road, or we don't. And allowing it to come back and retest would be foolish because it already did it once, twice, and this would be the third time. This needs to move. So let's see, we do have negative volume, but price action is not playing. We have 15 million negative net, 20 on the buy, 37 on the sell, 17, 18 negative net, 19 negative net. Come on, make the move. 22 negative net and no movement. 25 negative net and price action to the upside. That's a no-no. And the same principle applies in any other currency pair, even futures. You're looking for a specific outcome within a measurable time. In this case, we're looking for a specific outcome within a measurable time. And we're systematically identifying the deception in the trade, which is there is volume divergence, price action is to the downside, but, there's always a but. In this case, price action is not following through with the negative volume. So now as the buyers start coming in, you have 33 on the buy, 52 on the sell, difference of 18 million. We need to see what price action does. Microsoft to buy LinkedIn for $26 billion deal. Wow. Now that was a negotiation. See, now you have more bullish volume that's come in, but no price action to the upside. It's still holding. So this is where basically we need to see a reaction. Now, if this one does come down from here, that's great because it opened right where this one closed, and it would be a continuation of the movement. Now we have negative 18 million and still no movement. $13 million negative, 12 million net negative, 11, and nothing in price action here giving us any hint that they're planning on going either way right now. There they're absorbing their own orders at this price level. Let's take a look at this. Usually when they've been here before, they've gone one way and they've gone the other. So we are at a crucial point right here. But we are seeing that there are power dots right here. And this is where they haven't been able to break below. So let's see if it happens now. It has to break below 79.36. If it doesn't break below that, then we have to basically walk away. There is nothing to stay for after that. There it is. Okay, they broke through. Let's see if they hold and continue. Let's take a look at the volume. You have negative 8.3, 92 on the buy, 103 on the sell. That's quite a bit of volume that has been settled. You have a difference of 2.1 million, 2.9, and still they're right at that pivot. Has to break below the pivot in order for us to say we're good. And then we should see it. I would feel more comfortable if it goes down 5 pips below that pivot, because then it's going to hit this, hitting this one or slightly below it, and then at that point I'd say we have a good chance of getting a good trade. See that. Now this candle would be it. If we don't see anything now, there's 3 minutes left. If we don't see any movement in this candle now, which would be the third one after this one, and a continuation move to the downside, if it doesn't play out, it's not going to play out. Normally, this is a candle where they would play the trade out. So they're right there at that pivot, right smack on it. You're gonna move, make the move, make the move, make the move. Following divergence, everything, even though it's an inside candle, it's not really that inside anymore. Excuse me. 2 minutes left and nothing. See, I won't give a trade more than 2 candles. Has negative 14 million and negative 13, negative 12. No price action. Negative 11. No movement in the candle. 9.7. 8.6. 8.1 and no movement. 8. 7.8. 6.6 million. Still negative, but the buyers are coming in. No movement. See? 4.6. 4.9. 5 million negative. 5.2. 5.1. And 1 minute left. I mean, if they were really waiting for the open, wow. Excuse me. Come on, go below. If you go below, we're all going to have a smile on our face. Okay, let's see what this one did. This one closed below the trend dot. This is opening at a lower level. Will it play is the next question. And play out. Come on. Go below. We're up 7 pips. Keep going. Keep going. We're up 8, no more. 9 pips, 8 pips. It broke below that pivot down, so it goes below this one, 79.29. We'll be up 10 pips, and then at that point it should come down like a bandit. I'm expecting it to stop around here, 79.12, if it continues. Now we're playing the probability of will it continue. That's the next question at hand. And there it goes. We're up 14 pips. Keep going. In this case, the target, I'm looking for 79.18. If it gets to that, if it doesn't, then we're out. And sometimes, I'll look for 20 pips to lock in. If I don't see that it doesn't lock in the 20 pips, then at that point, I'll just, at this point, just take what's on the table, because they've had a tendency recently in the mornings to move 15, maximum 18, 19 pips, and that's it. We're up 15 pips now, and here it comes. Let's see if it breaks. Okay, it hit the mark. It went right through it, so it hits the power dot right here. Very nice. Will it stay? Here's a question. Once you reach this level and you're up this much, we're up 30 pips now at this point. There, it broke below. Let's see how far it goes. 40 pips. Very nice. 45. Beautiful trade. Now at this point, because it moves so much, 45 pips, I would rather take what's on the table and move on to the next trade. Why? Because once they make an initial move like this, it's usually a 30. If they do a 30, 40 pip move, they're going to come right back, which is exactly what they did right here. So if I wouldn't have gotten out right here, I would have given up basically 15 pips on the trade. Will they come down? Possibly. I'd say, don't risk too much and take what's on the table and move on. So we want to thank them very much for the first trade. Now we have something to really look forward to, and that means that we can now go look for something else. Let us go look for, let's remove the volume, and let's go look for another one. So you see how we calculated risk. We had a very good idea of how they were playing price action and volume. There was volume divergence, but we were waiting. Finally, this is the one that kicked, and then this one just went right down. And see here, you'd be up 30 pips instead of 45 pips. I like 45 pips myself. So now we can go look for something else. And it seems like everything moved at this point. I mean everything. Let's take a look at what the US yen did. Not a bad way to start the market. Please tell me someone took the trade. No one took the trade? Okay. This one here, they used the trend stop. This was the candle we look for. Boom, they popped. Of course, they're coming right back down as usual. And that means that we should see something reacting similar in the Dow futures. Maybe we'll find a futures trade right now. Very nice. Oh, you are welcome, Marshall. You are very welcome. Okay, so here, see how they came down, then they came back up. I wouldn't really be looking for a trade quite yet here. I think that based on what I'm seeing here, I may go down actually to the smaller minutes. You know, sometimes you may not find the pattern. I'm driving. You're driving. Oh my God. You're a driving trader, buddy. So here they did play it out, and then they moved. Now they're really moving. It's moved 10 points. We're slightly a little late here. I wouldn't be, that keen to jump in on it. But as you can see, in the morning, they will play this trade significantly. And this is the 3-minute, but you can see how they did the same thing here. See how when they broke below the trend stop, they came back, retested it, our candle pattern perfectly here. I'm sure that if we bring the volume out, it'll probably show it. They did it again here. They came up, retested, bounced right off of it. You had all three means, the 200, the 100, the 50. They traded below it, and from that point, it never looked back. It was 17,806 to 17,778. Not a bad trade. Now, of course, they halted. They came back, but I don't think they're going to continue to the upside at this point, and I would rather wait. I think that it's a little premature to be jumping into the Dow right now, especially when the move had already initiated an hour earlier, this being the hour. So, but you can see here how when they broke again, you had power dots. They came back, retested. So long as they don't break the trend stop and they close below the mean, if they're trading around it, it means they're going to come back. Now, they already initiated a move to the downside. I like the trade to the downside more than I do to the upside. From here, I can risk literally 5 points, which is the top of this wick. Because if this one is closing below this trend dot, the next trend dot is going to open right here. And then from that point, this should come down. So I'm willing to risk 5 points. I'm not willing to risk more. Let's see if it plays. Like I said, I didn't like this trade to the upside because it was a little bit too quick. And then when I saw the yen come back aggressively, now it's just a matter of seeing whether it's going to play or not. But again, at this point, if I risk, 5 points, 5 ticks, I can live with myself. We've already put a big trade behind us, so we're positive. We're not really giving up much. And the market's already opened. So at this point, it's just a matter of seeing whether it's going to play or not. At this point, it would be good for you to go to the volume indicator, confirm, and make sure that it is in actuality going to the downside. Okay, so we do have negative volume here, but now we have volume divergence coming up. This is no good, but this basically, you had volume divergence here, then you had it here, this had bullish volume, and then this, it didn't play out, and then it came down. But now you have it here, and so now I need this one to come down. This one is showing, if this one closes with a negative outcome, I'm looking forward to it significantly, because that means that it'll play into my trade. What is my trade? If I see a bullish candle with bullish volume and settle with a negative outcome, I am ecstatic and I'm jumping for joy. So this is really where, we have to wait and see if it's going to play. I mean, the Dow's, the cash market's coming down, but the futures isn't really doing much. The Dow is trading at 17,795. This one's at 17,789. Again, not what I wanted. I'll close my position, get out, because it didn't play. You know, my risk at this point, I would have preferred if it would have been 5. You know, I got out with 7 ticks. No, with 17 ticks. No, 7 ticks out. And then it moved against me. So that's why I said I would have preferred if this came down. It didn't. It came right back up. So I can live with my decision. I only lost $35 on this trade, which I would have preferred not losing at all. But it didn't play, and sometimes you win, you lose some, but make sure you don't lose a lot. Again, we're looking for a specific outcome. If it doesn't play, then your risk is minimal, and at that point, you're not, see, I got in at 17,788. I got out at 17,797. So it was actually 35, so it was actually seven ticks is what I missed, but it moved pretty swiftly. So now let's go look for something else since we missed this one. But wait a minute, they came up to retest. So what's their deal? This came up too aggressive right now, and there is no news. So this is a straight technical trade. You do have volume divergence to the upside. Depending where this closes, the next candle should go up. If it doesn't, then that means you're coming right back down. Whenever you see them move and they bring in a tremendous amount of volume to drive the market, once this candle closes, and see, it just started right now, so we still have 4 minutes left in this one. I'd like to say this one's going to continue to the upside, but at this point, I really can't jump in. It already moved. Once it's moved, it's moved. There's nothing more to continue doing. So let's go and see what else we have. Let's take a look at that US CAD. Oh yeah, that's almost, that's 35 point move in one candle. That's a pretty aggressive move. I would not trade a counter trade on that one at all. Whoa, that's a 10-point drop. But no, a little too wild right now for us to get in on. Let's take a look at the US CAD, see how crude reacted. Your first trade should always try and be the one where you have a positive outcome. If you have a negative outcome, it should be no more than 5, 7 ticks, 7 pips max. You know, we're trying to really define rules in a very strict manner so that if the trade does not play out, then it's okay. We don't lose much and we can still recover from it. And if it does play out, then we do well. And if we do well, then at that point, there isn't much more to be discussed. Now, sometimes all you need is one trade. You know, if you make in your first trade what you're looking to make in the day, the way we did in the Euro Pound, there really isn't nothing much else to do. Now, this one here, as you can see, is not really coming down. You actually have volume divergence, but, and you can see it here, this is to the upside, but you do have price action to the downside. So someone is lying. Whenever we see this, assume price action is lying. That's the first assumption. But in this case, because they're trading below the trend dots, and this isn't flat the way it is here. See here, it flatlined. I prefer these trades when the market goes flat, and the trend dots begin to go sideways. Because when this happens, then at that point, the outcome of this trade is highly probable in your favor. Now, this wasn't a big move, but it was from 127.82 to 127.65. Not a bad trade. See here, this is a continuation trade to the downside. So that means that we have dollar weakness. If that is the case, and that means that crude's going up, this should go down. They've already broken through the trend stop. So whenever they break through the trend stop like this, I usually want to wait, because once this candle closes, the way this one did, we should see a red ATR level begin to form. And that means that eventually it'll come and retest. So now I'd rather wait, because I missed this initial move. Would I have taken this trade based on this information here? No, it was bullish. It went up, came down, still bullish. This one's the one that basically broke, and then this one settled. This would have been an entry for me here, not these two. These would have said it's setting up, but this would have been the one. As you can see, it's continued to come down, but I don't trust it enough to stay in it, because it's been quite an aggressive move from 28.24 to 27.92. You know, that's practically a 30 pip trade. And they will move 30 in between 25, 30 pips and then stall and consolidate. So I'm looking for the consolidation in this case, because they broke the trend stop, a new trend stop to form, and for them to come and challenge it. It's not there yet. Let's take a look at the euro. All right, I'll be right back while this comes up. Give me a minute. Okay, so let's take a look at this one. This one should be interesting. We saw that the dollar had lost value. Now here, I guess we're looking for volume divergence to see why this happened. Now we have power dots that have formed here on the 5-minute. They're trading right off the mean. The fact that they formed here and came back means that this is a retest. If this does not go up, then it must come down. So now we're basically just waiting. If they break above this level, then they break above. It doesn't mean get in the trade and go. No. Whenever you see power dots, remember, power dots are announcing three things: volume, liquidity, and momentum buildup, which equals trade. Now this one was a bullish candle, came up, settled C, there it is. That's what I was looking for. Now at this point, I can go in with minimal risk, seeing what they're doing. What's my risk? 5 pips. Right here, 1265. I got in at 1260. It falls within my parameters. Now, this one has negative volume. Again, I'm not willing to risk more than that. Why? Because those are my rules. Once you define your rules on how you're going to trade, then at that point, stick to your rules. Stick to your plan, believe in your strategy, and you will see that you will have sometimes very minimal losses, but your wins will outperform your losses because your losses will be extremely minimal and your wins will be extremely big. Now here, this shows volume divergence, but we need, at this point, see how these are all negative? This one came up, but it failed to go any higher. This one is an inside candle. Granted, I don't like the aggressiveness of the trend dots, but if it turns from here, if it doesn't go any higher, then it must come down. And look, it's starting to develop negative volume. See, it has 9.4 million, 9.2 million. If it maintains there, and sometimes you have to wait for it. I may have gotten in a little bit prematurely. So at this point, you have 13 million net negative, 40 million on the buy, 55 million on the sell, 15 million negative net volume. I'm only down 2 pips. I'm not willing to risk more than 5, 6 pips at this point. That's how comfortable I feel with my decision. I would have preferred if this candle actually initiated here and came down or maintained itself around here. The fact that it's up here right now, it's neither here nor there. Like I said, I'm not willing to risk more than that. So if I don't see that this, plays to the downside, then I'll get out. Again, we're looking for a probability to play out. If it doesn't play, it doesn't play. We move on to the next trade. Just keep sticking to your rules and your plan. And if you do that, at this point, your stop loss would be here. Let's say 112.66. Place it, leave it alone, don't change it. If they stop you out, they stop you out. And if not, then it continues, it will play in your favor. If it plays in your favor, then you're good. If not, what did you lose? 5 pips. It's not a lot. Like I said, sometimes you'll go through 3 of these that will not play out. And then finally the 4th one plays out. And so at that point, it's just a matter of basically just being patient and waiting. On Friday, we didn't really have big winners. They were small trades, very minimal trades, nothing extravagant. And we had a few minor losses because we stuck to our plan, maintained very small stop losses. You could say that we ended up positive slightly with maybe 5 pips for the morning. That's like breaking even, but we spent close to 2 hours and nothing. Today, this morning, we found one good trade, and that made up for all of it. So now at this point, I'm playing the probability and waiting to see what happens. It still has a negative outcome, but I need to see price action go down. If I see price action go down and I see that this bar settles slightly negative, a little bit more to lower here, then at that point, I'm looking for the next candle to be a continuation of that move. If it's not a continuation and it holds, then at least I have 3 things going for me. Number 1, I have volume divergence, which is in play. Number 2, I have power dots. Number 3, the power dots formed right off of a trend stop, which is very significant because once they broke below this price level, they came down. So that means this is a very this level is not a real support or resistance level, but more of a mid-range level that they use as a reference point to come back, retest before they continue. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for a continuation of trend to the downside. Even though this one came up, you know, maybe it'll come back here, and maybe at this point I may have to take my time and look to see, are there any pivots to the left? There's one right here, right below it, so that means the minute it goes to my break-even point, it has to break below. If it doesn't, then I have to consider getting out. Are there any more pivots? The next two are here at 12.53. The next one is right here. The next one is right here. And so at this point, it's more of a waiting game. Remember, this candle just closed. It closed negative with a negative outcome, but we need to see this one actually do continuation of that move, because it didn't at this point. I'd rather just cut my loss. If I see that it moves against me, that's it, there. I'm not even going to wait any further. I'm just basically just going to hold off. Let's see, I was just about to close. Will they, will they, will they, will they, will they, will they, will they? Oh, maybe they won't. But I'm not comfortable with the fact that they played it, so I really need to see this one come down. And if it doesn't come down at this point, then, you know, I would have preferred if they closed this candle, traded and closed below all three moving averages. And I'm not looking for a moving average cross. No, I'm looking for price action to make a statement. And in this case, it's not making the statement that I'm looking forward to. So this one, because this was negative, I expected this one to make the move to the downside. It hasn't. And so at this point, this has 3 minutes left. And no, it's not going to play from the looks of it. It was a continuation. The next trend dot will form here, and that means that they'll use it as a reference points up. And that is not a good thing. So I'm wanting to see, no, it's going to break above my my comfort level. I'll get out. Again, if it didn't play, it didn't play. You know, what is my stop loss? Very minimal. You have to be very comfortable with your strategy. Again, I repeat, if not, stay out of the trade. Do not take it. We're looking for a specific outcome. And if it's not playing, it's not playing. Let's take a look at the let's go, 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 go. Euro Swiss seems to have a signal. Let's see. Huh. Same signal. You treacherous. Bullish, bullish, bullish. Flat, flat, flat. Now I'm going to wait. Now I'm not going to jump the gun because I've already had 2 minor losses and I've had 1 big win. And so now I'm looking for a specific reaction. If I don't see it, I don't trade it. It's that simple. You know, here we have them trading right below a pivot. Power dots have formed, means it is a good resistance level. But the Euro's on a rally right now, And so they're using the trend dots to move up, which is what they did here. They broke above, as you can see, and now this one should go to the upside. Sometimes they'll break slightly above the power dots and then come down, but in this case, that isn't the case. You know, it's the way that they traded it. I mean, we could have been up 5 pips. You know, 5 pips isn't a lot based on the move. I can assure you that. So no, not the trade that would normally make our day. And whenever I see something like this, see how I told you that they would come up and retest and then possibly, you know, pull back down. I'm not sold on it because it looks to me like they're going to continue. So at this point, I may actually, let's close this. Let me look here. Okay, so we have dollar down, Swiss down, euro is flatlining. So the Swiss is what drove this, not because the euro is actually moving. Dollar weakness drove the euro trade up. We have the pound at an extreme and the CAD at an extreme. I like the pound CAD more than I do anything else. This one may be one that might be a trade to look for. Let's see. Excuse me. Give it a minute. Come on. Pound CAD. Okay, so this one's at an extreme. We have the pound up here, the CAD down here. They will rebalance. It's not ready yet. Now, why is this trade actually a good trade to look at or contemplate? I want you to look at something. And let me bring this up slightly. You see the volume here? How it's, you know, you had volume divergence to the upside, but then it just started to level off. They continued, but it leveled off, and it's been slightly, looks like it's been coming down. Now, my only discomfort with this trade is that they've been using the trend dots to move up aggressively. So maybe here I may not be getting the signal that I'm looking for. And based on where it's trading, that's a big risk right there. You're talking 20 pips. I'm not willing to risk 20 pips for a trade. No way. You know, I'm willing to risk 5. That means if it doesn't meet my requirement, then I don't have a trade. So maybe at this point, I'll have to go look for something else. And removing the volume indicator may be a good thing. Okay, very good. I'll send you an email. Excuse me. Sorry about, oh, right, there we go. So now we see how this one pulled back pretty aggressively. If this one initiates to come down, then maybe where it's trading from right now, I would risk 6 pips, but I wouldn't. Until I see this thing begin to come down, I'm not risking anything because I'm already ahead at this point, and so I may not be interested in taking on any risk. At this point, I'm a spectator because this thing still looks like it has one more leg up before it comes down. So I want to see how much of a leg up it has before it comes down. And as tempting as this is, it was here and then it dropped 3-4 pips. It's not worth it. If you're looking for counter trend trades, don't do this type of trade. This is a very dangerous trade because this one will either play in your favor or it will not. This is what I call a 50-50, and those aren't good odds. I still think this still has room to go up. Now, if I would have seen, for instance, let's take a look at this. If this thing would have been trading close to the trend stop, the way this did here, and you saw this candle pattern here formulate, then at this point, as you can see, once they broke above the trend dots and you had this one, this would have been where I would have looked for my entry right after this one. But this one here, it closed right below the point of control, but they're very aggressive to the upside, one. And number two is that even as aggressive as they are in that regard, the next trend dot is going to form right here. Now, the odds of this going up are very strong right now, but this is telling us that it will eventually rebalance. So maybe at this point, I may want to draw a line here, let's say at 82.80, 82.85. And if I don't see that it goes up to that line and it stalls maybe in the next 2-3 candles, then at that point, I would consider going short. But right now, the 5-minute isn't telling me anything, so I'll go, oh, Aussie yen. We'll take a look at that right now. Thank you. Let's give this a minute. Excuse me. See how it went up? It was at 60 and it's moved up 15 pips. So here, like I said, I may be waiting because I know eventually it will rebalance, but right now is not the moment. And I would have to wait for them to actually go flat a few candles or consolidate before actually coming down, because this has been a real big move on their part. And it already, it initiated at 2:30 in the morning my time, which is 5:30 Eastern. That's 234 pips. What a beautiful trade. Wow. That's a big move, too much of a move. 234 pips, to me, tells me that it's not going to play. Am I willing to risk 10 pips here? Actually, not yet. I'm getting close to it. I don't think that they're going to go much higher. So 82.80 would be the max. But it's not giving me the signal that I'm looking for. Now we have the next candle. Let's see what this one does. If this one fails to go up, from this point, then we're going down. See how it's failing? At this point, would I risk 5 pips? Damn, it's already began to the downside. I missed it. I'll hold. After a 234 pip move, do not expect it to continue much higher. I should have gotten in up here, but let's see if they retest it. Again, it's not the setup that I'm looking for yet. You know, this thing did one thing. I mean, it did come up, pull down, close slightly below, but it's not the setup that I'm looking for. I'm looking for this type of setup, but inverted. So this isn't giving me that. I don't have a trade yet. So let's go take a look at that Aussie yen trade. But this one will set up for something. You need to watch that, because it is one of those that will eventually retrace, just not yet. Let's take a look at the Aussie yen. Okay. Oh, yes, indeed. This one does look like it's setting up for something. Right off the mean. There aren't any power dots, but see, at this point, what we may want to do, I don't like the aggressiveness of this, but so long as it maintains itself, no, not yet. And maybe at this point what I want to do is that, yeah, see, because it moved, I'll remove the volume price identifier for the time being. And again, not the setup that I'm looking for. Maybe I'll go to the higher time frames and see if there's anything that would tell me that there may be some power dots that I should be considering looking at. Right here, the 240. So once it gets to 78.88, if it doesn't go above that, yeah, 78.88, you know, sometimes you want to go to the higher time frames and see what is there. So 78.88 right there is a level that it may not break. And if it doesn't, it's okay, but this is a straight mean reversion trade, and that means that it could come all the way up here. So let's see. Nothing is set in stone yet. Let's continue. Let's go to the 480. Nothing there. They did have power dots here, as you can see. Once they broke above it, boom, they made the move. 600. No. 720. 720. Right here. This is what would have given you notice that they were actually going to make the move to the upside. That's why sometimes it's important to map out your levels, because you never know when they're going to hit them. And if they're at lows, imagine that they're not going to be breaking below those lows. So now we can actually go back down and see how this trade actually developed, why it developed, and why sometimes we need to pay attention to that. Let's continue down. Nothing here. Look at that. They're going to hit that level. 90. Let's go to the 60. Nothing on the 60. Let's go to the 45. 45. So they went from trend stop to power dot on the 45 minute. Okay, so now we know that this level is here. Let's change the color so that we know. Continue to identify. 20 minute. And see here on the 20 minute, we had power dots right off of the 720. This would have been your trigger. You actually would have seen it here earlier and then seen it here with the volume price identifier. Let's go down to the 115, to the 15. Now we can add the other indicators, because now we have an idea, more or less, of the type of trade that they're going to play. Now these next few days are going to be, I'd like to say, somewhat volatile, and there could be some great trades that you can find. The only thing that you have to come to terms with is that the volatility is coming, one, because of Brexit, not because of the Fed rate announcement. Janet Yellen is too predictable. So, see how it's continuing to move up here on the 15-minute. Maybe now I'll want to go down to a 7-minute, for instance. 10-minute may not give me what I'm looking for, but a 7-minute might. Let's see. Give it a minute. We're almost there. Yeah, no, it's going to continue to move to the upside. No trade. See this here? I mean, this is the one that I would have looked for, but if it would have been inverted. This one was not. As you can see, it settled with a bullish outcome, and then they continued. Here, we don't have anything yet to determine that it is the trade that we're looking for. Whenever you see something like this, you need to see the body of the candle actually close below the close of the previous candle if it settles with a negative outcome. If you do not see that, in this case we haven't seen it, there is no trade. Even though it is at, an all-time high here. Again, this move, let's see how big this move was. There is no trade yet. 54 pips. Not a bad trade. Now see here, when they broke the trend stop, they didn't come back and retest. They came back and retested basically the trend dots, and then they moved. There hasn't been anything quite like this here. So here, when they broke below this one, they did come up. They broke above it, but then the power dots formed here right below the 200, and this was the candle that we were looking for to go short. That isn't the case here. We need to see this one close right below the close of this one. If it does, then we need to see a negative outcome here with negative volume. If we don't have negative volume, then we don't have a trade, because then what they could do is come back, retest the trend stop, and then go up. And this is just 3 pips. This is not worth getting in right now. I can assure you, sometimes it's better to just wait and let them give you the trade. In this case, I want to seriously wait. Because the trend dots are so aggressively to the upside, if they would have been somewhat like this, as you can see, I wouldn't be too concerned. But this move has to be extreme to actually come and retest this level and break below. And I don't see that happening. So I'm not going to jump in for 5 pips just because at this point, even though they're trading off of a 45-minute level, which they, went from congestion to the next level on a 45-minute. It's just not the trade that I'm looking for. I'm very specific now about the risk that I'm willing to take, and if it doesn't give it to me the way I want it, then there's no trade. And that is really all that matters. It has to be on your terms. This trade is not on my terms. So because it's not on my terms, I don't have anything to continue to do here. And let's see if something else is rebalancing. That pound CAD still continued to go up, but the CAD started to get stronger. Maybe the euro pound seems to be continuing to the down. No, it actually, the euro, yeah, it may have actually rebalanced slightly. Maybe the US CAD is one that we should consider looking at right now. Let's go to the US CAD. So for those of you that joined us a little late, we'll post a video up on YouTube for you guys to see it, and we'll try and send out an email later on today or this evening, if not tomorrow, so you guys can take a look at it. The first trade was good. We made 45 pips on the euro pound, and then we had 2 minor losses, 7 ticks on the Dow futures, and 5 pips on another trade, which was very minimal. So now we're basically taking our time and analyzing and seeing if there's anything else. Like I said, if in the first trade you make your first $500, $600, you know, whether you're trading 1 or 2 lots, then basically you should consider at that point stopping. There's nothing more to do in that regard except just wait. Sometimes the best thing to do is just wait for the market to set up again. And at this point, we don't really have anything here. We were looking at this one, and it did look like it was going to come down because we did. No, this was not the one. Maybe it was. Maybe it was. It can't. No, we were analyzing, and it still came down. Now it's sort of stalled, but it came down from 28.24 to 28.75. That's not bad. That's 50 pips. That's a pretty good trade, but we're late. We are late. Here, where would have been the entry based on what they did here? This candle would have basically initiated the concern. This one would have confirmed, and then of course this one would have set it off, and off she went. But right now, no trade. So let's continue to look. Maybe the euro dollar will do something for us. This thing's going to continue to come down. It's going to break this level, but we're late. I don't like to take trades where we're late. Nope, let's continue. New Zealand CAD. Well, we already saw the CAD moved already down, so we're not missing much there. New Zealand dollar. Aussie dollar. Yeah, see this one. If you know that it's going to move, then know your risk. What are you willing to risk if you're willing to get in a trade like this? You know, if you know that it's going to continue to move one more candle down and you could pick up an extra 10 pips, would you? That's a question you have to ask yourself. I don't usually like to take these trades myself unless I'm really sure that they're going to continue in that direction. You know, I may risk 5 pips again, not more than that. And if I see that they're going to continue down, then, you know, maybe it'll go down another, 5, 10 pips, I may go in there. This is considered a scalp. This isn't considered a trade. Don't confuse, a scalp with a trade. A trade is where you're going for, 15, 20, 30 pips. A scalp is where you're going for something minimal. 5 pips, 10 pips, 5, really conservative, 10 is extravagant in a trade like this. And the only reason why I'm contemplating it is because I know they're going to break those trend dots right there, see? And once they break below it, they've got to go down to the next level because they've already traded below these pivots here, this pivot here, so they've already broken below. So that means that they could come down, like I said, 5, 10 pips. And That would be the only outcome that I'm looking for. I'm not looking for anything else. So if a move already initiated, you have to be very comfortable in your skin to get into that trade. Don't just follow the trade because it's there. That's not the purpose of this. You know, get into the trade because you're expecting it to continue. And if it's not, then again, your risk, 5 pips. That's it. No more than that. Don't risk anymore, especially if you've already won. This would not be a trade that I would normally go after initially in my first trade. Not even close. Only because we've already had a great trade. This one, you know, may continue down, you know, because it's already on the downside. And the only reason why I'm even contemplating this one is because it's come down significantly now, you know, for about an hour. And that's been quite a move. So in this case, maybe I'll go to a 60-minute to see what is actually, how it's set up on the 60-minute. If I see it in the higher time frame, there's a specific setup that I would normally look for. Then at that point, that may tell me that this trade may go on for another hour. If it does, then great. It means I got in at the right time. So let's give it a minute. Okay, so here they're trading right below the trend stop. This did settle. If you look here, it looks like it settled with negative volume. Let's see if it did. No. But this candle is trading to the downside. And this thing settled below the trend stop. It closed below the close of this previous candle, which is something that I would normally look for anyway. So that means that this does have the potential to continue to come down. If it comes down, and see how the trend dots have been more or less flatlining here. If this one closes below this trend dot, then we should see a continuation of the move to the downside. But it's already at the 5 pips where I'm usually comfortable or not comfortable anymore in a trade. But because I see this setup, I may want to, at this point, maybe extend it and, you know, give it maybe 10 pips just to give it a little room to breathe to come down. But now that I see that, you know, I'll go down and I will see if it's a trade that I should continue to stay in or not. Let's give it a minute. Okay. Let's see if it plays. We've got 1 minute left. The pivot is right here, right at our entry. If it plays, it plays, and if it doesn't, then I think it's going to continue, to be quite honest with you, just because of what I saw in the 60-minute. Oh, power dot. Let's see what it does. Come on, keep going. Now we really need to see a reaction. And it formed right where the trend stop and pivot is. Let's go, let's go, let's go, make your move. Okay, broke below the pivot. Let's go. Keep going. Again, I'm not looking for much. 10 pips max. In this case, that means they'd have to come exactly to this power dot. Come on, come on, come on. Make the move. Nothing. You're taking your time. This thing has a tremendous amount of negative volume. 39 million negative, nothing. 14 on the buy, 56 on sell, 42, 43 million negative net. 44, 45, 46. Seriously? Come down. 41, 40, 39. No. 41. No. 37. No. Now at this point, you know, I'm expecting something within the time frame. It's not playing within my time frame, and I don't like the power dot here, so I'll just step off at this point. I didn't win, I didn't lose. You know, it's not normally the trade that I would take. I made that very clear. The fact that this power dot formed is not something that I like, because normally when it forms at a support level like this, it means that there's a reversal that could come into play. So now I may want to wait, but I believe it has one more leg to the downside. We'll see depending on how this candle closes. But now that this, you know, it looks like the body of the candle is going to close higher than the points of control, it's undecided. It's not defined yet. I got no trade. So at this point, nothing more that I can do in that regard. I won't play it. Let's take a look at that pound cat and see if they see if they have anything for us that would be significant. Now, if you see that consistently they begin to move the market an hour early before you normally get up to trade, then maybe you need to get up an hour and a half earlier to take a look for a setup. And if it's there, then take your trade. You know, sometimes they may move liquidity to specific hours, and so you have to literally just wait and see, and if they're consistent at it, then go look and see if you can find, you know, trades at that time of the hour. Now, if you live here in the U.S., if you're on the West Coast, so I am, and getting up an hour and a half earlier than where I normally get up is a little bit difficult, so I may not want to do that myself. I may want to look at the Asian session, which has been pretty active actually lately. Okay, so see, here's the pound cat. It didn't go any higher. We knew that. I actually feel comfortable with this on the downside now. My reason, we gave it time. You have volume divergence now. Now I think it's just a matter of time. We saw that they were they were at extremes. The CAD was going to get strong. The pound can't sustain the level of strength anymore. I have 1, 2 candles. Even though they settled bullish, they came down. So at this point, now I'm looking for a specific move, and it has to move. This is the third candle. Remember, after this setup, it closed below the close of the previous candle. This one opened below the close of this one, came down, and this one opened below and should move to the downside. If it plays out, this is the third candle after this one. So at this point, we should see a reaction. And the reaction is that we're looking for is most definitely price action down and volume divergence down. Let's see what they play. For me to stay in this trade and continue strong, you would have to break below this trend dot at 182.43. Now we're up 10 pips, and it would have to come down here. We got it at 182.57. It's trading at 182.45. That's pretty fast. So if it breaks below this, then it has to come down here, and that's where I think they'll stall. And you know what? I'm okay with that. Again, I didn't get the reaction in the first trade and the last trade. I'm getting right now. Let's see if it plays out. Excuse me. Now, even though I don't have power dots here, we did have them in the higher time frame, remember, in the 45-minute. So that's where we basically just have to sit down and wait and see. Now, at this point, I need to see a swift reaction on this one. This is the candle that has to move. Most definitely has to break below 182.43 in order for me to stay. I'll stay. If not, I have to exit and walk away. Make the move. Make the move. Come on. Hit the floor. Keep going. Keep going. Break below. Come on. Break below. Are there any pivots that I should be concerned about here? This one here, and it broke below it. And there's nothing else until here. Wow, this might be a good trade. Even though I'd say 82.25 would be the next level if it goes to that. What the? Great.
Daddy,
Yes, Papa.
look at the TV. They turn it off.
I know, Papa. Let me see what's happening.
Connection lost.
There it goes. Everyone's still there? A simple yes will do. Great. I lost my connection. Everyone's still there? Hello, hello, hello? No, I lost them. Great.